Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're zooming in on a year that literally catapulted the world into a whole new era, 1960. It was a leap year, starting on a Friday, and honestly, it was this foundational moment in human history, just completely packed with immense tension and incredible promise. If you really want to understand the foundations of our modern world, you absolutely have to understand 1960. Okay, let's dive into this. Our agenda today covers 5 totally transformative areas. We're looking at the Year of Africa, how the Cold War escalated, the spark of civil rights, giant leaps in science, and finally, culture and catastrophe. It's going to be a wild 366-day ride. Part 1, the Year of Africa. You know, the changing winds of the time were probably best captured by British Prime Minister Harold Macmillan. He delivered his famous Wind of Change speech first in Accra, Ghana in January, and then again to the South African Parliament in Cape Town in February. It was a clear, unmistakable signal from a major world power. Basically, the era of European colonial rule in Africa was coming to an inevitable end. 17. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer volume of African nations that officially gained their independence in this single calendar year. From Cameroon on January 1st, all the way to Nigeria in October, the geopolitical map of the world was literally being redrawn in real time. If we break down the origins of these newly independent nations, a distinct pattern pops up. We've got 14 emerging from the French colonial empire, 2 from the British Empire, and 1 from Belgium. Now, while countries like Senegal and Mali gained their freedom relatively smoothly, others faced immediate and really complex crises. Take the Belgian Congo, for instance. They gained independence in late June, but were almost immediately plunged into the Congo crisis, a period of deep instability involving leaders like Patrice Lumumba and eventual military intervention. So this massive global shift definitely came with some severe growing pains. Part 2, the Cold War escalates. Tensions between the U.S. and the Soviet Union went from simmering to boiling incredibly quickly. On May 1st, an American U-2 spy plane was shot down by Soviet surface-to-air missiles, and its CIA pilot, Francis Gary Powers, was captured. This direct confrontation just completely torpedoed a planned summit in Paris on May 16th. Why? Well, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev demanded an apology, and U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower straight up refused to give it. This diplomatic breakdown famously culminated in October when Khrushchev angrily banged his shoe on a desk at the United Nations General Assembly in sheer protest. And this conflict wasn't just happening up in the skies or on the floor of the UN. It was a deeply ingrained intelligence war. On September 6th, 2 American cryptologists, William Hamilton Martin and Vernon F. Mitchell, shockingly announced their defection to the Soviet Union at a press conference in Moscow. I point this out because it perfectly highlights the intense paranoia, the incredibly high stakes, and the cloak-and-dagger espionage that truly characterized the era. Part 3, the Civil Rights Spark. Let's move to this and see how it builds. On February 1st, 4 black college students sat down at a segregated Woolworth's lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina. They were refused service, but they peacefully stayed in their seats. This single act of nonviolent resistance triggered massive, similar protests all throughout the southern United States. And you know what? 6 months later, on July 25th, their persistence paid off when they were finally served a meal at that very same counter. However, demands for racial equality were met with vastly different responses depending on where you were in the world. While the Greensboro sit-ins were characterized by peaceful persistence that eventually led to localized change, the response to anti-apartheid protests in South Africa was horrific. On March 21st, police opened fire on black protesters in what became known as the Sharpeville Massacre, leaving at least 69 people dead. It's a stark contrast, right? These events really illustrate the varying and sometimes tragic global reactions to the universal demand for human rights. Part 4, giant leaps in science. Out in space, both superpowers were relentlessly pushing the absolute boundaries of orbital technology. On April 1st, the United States successfully launched TROS-1, which was the world's very first weather satellite, literally revolutionizing meteorology forever. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union answered back in August with Sputnik 5, successfully sending 2 dogs, Belka and Strelka, along with some mice and rats into orbit and bringing them back alive safely. Both of these milestones were massive stepping stones toward human spaceflight. But innovation of this magnitude rarely comes without a heavy cost. On October 24th, the Netherlands catastrophe occurred at the Soviet Union's Baikonur Cosmodrome. A massive rocket exploded right on the launch pad, killing at least 92 people involved in the space program. It remains a stark, devastating reminder of the highly perilous human cost and the incredible risks taken during this race to the stars. Now, what's really interesting about this is how in just a matter of months, humanity conquered the extreme physical limits of our planet. In January, the bathyscaphe Trieste touched the absolute bottom of the Earth, reaching the Mariana Trench. Then in May, the USS Triton completed the first fully underwater circumnavigation of the entire globe. And in August, Joseph Kittinger rode a balloon up to 102,800 feet and jumped, setting records for the highest free fall and the fastest speed attained by a human without an engine. We literally touched the highest highs and the deepest depths, all in one single year. Part 5. Culture and Catastrophe. Before we look at the historic event itself, we kind of need to understand the underlying science. A megathrust earthquake is a very large, incredibly powerful earthquake that occurs in a subduction zone, which is where one of the Earth's tectonic plates is physically pushed under another. These are the absolute monsters of the geological world, often generating highly destructive basin-wide tsunamis. And 1960 saw the biggest of them all. On May 22nd, the Valdivia earthquake struck southern Chile. Measuring at a staggering 9.5 magnitude, it remains the strongest earthquake in recorded human history. This macro-level natural disaster ruptured a massive stretch of the South American coast and sent devastating tsunamis rippling all the way across the Pacific Ocean. The sheer, terrifying scale of this event is honestly almost hard to comprehend. But contrast that natural cataclysm with the rapid construction of modern pop culture and media as we know it today. Just consider these milestones. September brought the very first live televised U.S. presidential debate between John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon, which forever changed how politics is consumed. Earlier that month, a young boxer named Cassius Clay, who we'd soon all know as Muhammad Ali, won Olympic gold in Rome. The famous Hollywood Walk of Fame was established in February, and television totally shifted with the premiere of the first primetime animated show, The Flintstones, in September. Our modern cultural framework was rapidly snapping right into place. So, the crucial point is that 1960 wasn't just another year on the calendar. It was a pressure cooker of geopolitical tension, a breakthrough moment for basic human rights, a proving ground for human ingenuity, and the undisputed birth of modern media. What does the convergence of all these historic events in a single leap year tell us about the trajectory of our modern era? It tells us that history isn't just a slow, steady march. Sometimes it's a massive, sudden sprint. The dominoes that were pushed over in 1960 are still falling today, shaping the very world we wake up in every single morning. Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.